is episode 283 of Mitolife Radio. I'm Matt Blackburn, and today I'm interviewing Josh Kaye, also known as Healthy Home Josh. He's here to talk about optimizing your home environment. Not to make this too political, but last weekend we had a historic event occur where somebody tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Some people say if that were to happen, it would have triggered a civil war. So whether it happened or almost happened, tensions are definitely high. I almost got run off the road this week in North Idaho here. People are super stressed out about it. So it's really important to optimize our house, our home, whatever your living situation is, to make it as relaxing and stress relieving as you possibly can. We don't get into the deep science of how the different hard to pronounce chemicals affect neurotransmitters and enzyme pathways. Josh is of the same mindset that most people just want to know what to do. They don't need to know the deep biochemistry of how everything works and all of the minutia that goes into it. So this episode is jam-packed with a ton of practical, actionable information that's easy to digest. We talk about mold, humidifiers, clothing, water filtration, both cooking, drinking, bathing. Josh shares his favorite cookware. We talk about how to optimize lighting, electromagnetic fields, his thoughts on mattresses with metal springs. I ask what his favorite bedding is, and then listener questions, including how to clean your garbage disposal, his thoughts on window air conditioning units, his thoughts on air purifiers, top 5 things to get out of the average person's home, and his thoughts on carpeting. So let's jump in. Here is Josh Kaye. Okay, we're here with Josh Kaye. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, our mutual friend, John the Savage, he introduced me to your page, and I love what you're sharing. It's really unique information. As we were talking about before I hit record, it's very practical, and you're not trying to impress the crowd with big words and studies, which I appreciate. It's like, this is what you need to do to move the needle. And some of it, as far as dishwasher and washing machine, as you were just mentioning, are free, super easy tips. And I think that's what we need the most in the natural health world right now, because there's just so much complexity and people trying to make it overly complicated. So yeah, I just want to kick it off there with thank you for kind of simplifying it and making it easily digestible for people.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I need for myself. So I think it's easy to get kind of distracted or confused, especially I had a friend recording my book for audio, and he's like, how do I pronounce these chemicals? I think the fact that you can't pronounce them is almost a good thing, It's if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be keeping it around or eating it or anything like that. So yeah, I'm just trying to simplify things. The reason I started this and the reason I wrote the book was first and foremost for friends and family that, you would go over to their house and you notice that they're using questionable products, and then they're talking to you about certain health issues that they might have or weight loss or anything like this. And for a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of listeners of your show who are clued into things, what's going on, it's kind of obvious, but I feel like I don't want to generalize the older generation. I'm 30 in my 30s, but I think a lot of people just kind of took quote unquote technical advancement in food or appliances, home products, anything, just without thinking twice about the repercussions. And I know I did, in my earlier life, I drank tap water without thinking twice. I'm sure a lot of people did, but just kind of like the whole purpose of this is just to help people realize some areas that they might need to think about or products they need to stop using, and just kind of make it simple and try not to scare people or like be a fear monger, really. But yeah.
That's great. Well, can we simplify it to say that a lot of these chemicals that we can't pronounce or that are hard to pronounce kind of have this toxicological synergy, or we don't even know how they synergize to affect different organs and glands? Like, I know if over the years I've looked into endocrine disruptors and things called obesogens that make people fat, and there's all these chemicals that have different effects. But if you had to simplify it, would you agree that a lot of these compounds hammer the organs and glands and burden them and decrease their function?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just my first response sort of to anything that I can't pronounce or materials that I am unfamiliar with. My first kind of gut reaction, which I think is generally good to follow, especially if you are, pretty health conscious, is just like to be skeptical about it. I'm not saying, there are things that are made from natural compounds that have sort of strange names, and that's just because they've been like distilled or whatever. But yeah, I think there's just so many innovative materials, and I say innovative in sort of like a negative way, that it's either cheaper or it's a substitute for something natural, that, mega corps or whatever. I'm not anti-capitalist, but I feel like a lot of these companies, their main concern is just profit margin. So if they can substitute some synthetic byproduct for a natural thing, then they're going to do it. And you almost like can't blame them, because if they're making so much of it, like that's the natural progression for sort of any company, is to streamline. But I don't think they really take into account, or maybe they know and they don't care, like what effects it has on people.
A good example would be like Febreze, right? And
Yeah.
these little plug-in fragrance emitters, just like gassing the room,
Yeah.
versus like essential oil diffusers, right? Which is a huge difference in the effect.
Yeah. I think if you really just sort of start paying attention to things, a lot of the products that are sold to us are just reformulations of things that already worked. So like you were just saying with the Febreze and the air fresheners, like is it really better for you to be using Febreze than to use an essential oil diffuser when the Febreze is likely made with petroleum byproducts? And if you're concerned about your health and filtering your air, and then you're just dropping a nuke of like suspicious chemical cocktail like into your room or your bathroom, you're kind of undoing the work that you've done to create like a healthier air environment inside. So, yeah, I mean, back to kind of what I was saying, I feel like a lot of things that were sold are just repackaged, marketed things that are just reformulations of things that worked before, simpler, more natural things. And it's just more cost effective to make them out of, petroleum or whatever
Yeah.
synthetic stuff is in them.
That's a great point. Yeah. I do think to kind of counter that too, there are possible advancements, but it's not going to come through things that are more harmful to biology. Like, for example, I live in North Idaho and I fell in love with like cabin forest life. And so wood structures, right? Wood and metal, but it's susceptible to wildfires. It's kindling. I'm living in kindling. It's susceptible to carpenter ants eating my house from the bottom up. And I'm looking into, in the next 2 years, everything goes right, living in ceramic and concrete. So there will be no wood and metal. And I guess there's like hempcrete and there's, other options for wood and building materials, but uh, I, I think there's a better way to do it in some situations as far as like the building structures. I mean, I've just been meditating on that from like a sustainability, long term, you know, how long is it going to last kind of perspective. And it seems like our homes aren't really built to last. They're just, it's just, we've been using wood for so long, we're just used to it. But what if ceramic's better? You know, what if domes are better than cabins?
Yeah. I think with that, like you're right, everything sort of has a pro and con, even the natural stuff. And there's reasons why innovations have been made, like you can't build an entire airplane out of wood and like expect it to be safe to fly in. So I know that's a strange example, but I think kind of my whole mindset and like mission behind what I'm trying to do is just have people take a step back and be like, look, I'm not trying to tell you to throw away everything, or like if you live in a house with carpet that you need to like rip out all the carpet or whatever. It's just about what are the issues that in your personal life you're dealing with, and then trying to pinpoint or get an idea like where that's coming from. And maybe, like completely redoing your house or moving into a different situation like you're talking about isn't feasible for everyone. So I just encourage people like, okay, if you're skeptical about maybe your living situation, like what your house is made out of, are you addressing like the quality of your water, the quality of your air, the clothing materials that you're wearing, what's your carpet made out of, what are your rugs and your furniture made out of, things that are much easier to change moving forward. And not to take it like too far off topic, but maybe we can get into this a little bit, is I just see so many people online that are like, this is toxic, this is horrible, this is killing you, this is poison. And while I think that's coming from a good place most of the time, I think it kind of shuts people down and overwhelms people to the point where they're like, well, what do I have to do? Like, go like dig a hole in nature, and that's the only way I'm going to be healthy. I think it's just kind of about picking your battles and not letting modern life like stress you out so much that you end up negatively affecting your mindset and your life because of it.
That's refreshing to hear. And I fully agree. And kind of looking at your situation, like when I got started, I was living with my parents and I was very limited on what I could do, because they slap the hand, say you can't do that, can't hook up a water filter. I mean, they let me do that, but there's a limit to what you can do. So I'm sure people evaluating that, like, are they living on their own? Are they living with parents? Are you buying? Are you renting? Are you in a isolated, like separated house? Or are you in a condominium, like factory farm situation where they're all shoved together?
Yeah.
All those factors matter, right? And like before you start to kind of see what's possible and what you could do.
Yeah, I think, and that's a big part of like what I kind of am like preaching to, is everybody's living situation is different. I can't say one blanket statement that's going to apply to everyone, And like we just moved into this house, we're renting it. So I can't tear down walls, I can't do certain things, but I am able to do a lot more than when we were in an apartment 6 months ago and we didn't have an HVAC system. So in that case, like I didn't have a HVAC filter to upgrade or replace. So I got a standalone unit. But now that I'm in this house that has an HVAC system, I've managed to replace all the filters with the level of filtration that I am able to without stressing, the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the standalone units from before, but I know on one of your previous shows, you were talking about how the HVAC is just able to move so much more air than a standalone unit. So that kind of is like what I'm trying to say is like everybody's situation is going to be different. Um, and you kind of, I think it's best if you just try and make the best out of what you've got instead of like, this is a huge component. And almost like the reason why I started doing this is there's so many people online that are singing the praises of homesteading. And don't get me wrong, like that's a dream of mine too. And I think it's a good thing for people to be aiming for, to have a sovereign lifestyle, to be independent and not reliant on the government infrastructure for food, everything. I think that's a good way or a good target to aim for. But a lot of people are in my situation where it's just not in the cards right now. Like there's a reason why I'm in Los Angeles, a huge metropolitan area. It's because of the work that I do, the work that my wife does. And I can't just uproot and like skip out into the country right now. So I was just seeing a lot of people kind of glorifying homesteading as like, and I kind of got the feeling like, oh, you're not homesteading, like you're not healthy. And that's not real. So I think it's much healthier for people to, instead of like fantasizing about the homesteading and waiting until you get to the homesteading to manage all of the toxic materials and get your health right, to get started now in the situation that you're in. And as you progress towards that goal, then you're just more prepared when you get there. I know you were talking to John about like animal husbandry and how a lot of people have this idea of like, oh, I'm going to have goats, I'm going to have cows, I'm going to have chickens. But if you live in an apartment and you've never done any of that work before, expecting to just like be an expert when you get to that point is a little wild because it's a lot of work. So I think if you were, say, in an apartment or a place where you can't have animals, to at least try to put in the effort in other areas, whether that be water filtration or air filtration or, EMF mitigation, things like that in preparation for, hopefully moving and having your own land and stuff.
Yeah, it's a great point. I've seen that message too, where people say if you're not homesteading, you're not healthy. And I think what that translates to is a message of like, if it's not ideal, don't take action.
Yeah.
Or what you're saying is like, just get started where you're at, whatever situation you're in, which is a great message. It's very empowering uh, for people, I think. So would you say it's a combination of uh, supporting your own body's health while taking inventory of your environment and seeing what you could possibly change and upgrade? Like I know when I got started, I was going heavy on like green juicing and enzyme therapy and sauna and enemas, coffee enemas. And I think it did make a difference, and a lot of herbs and stuff, detoxifying herbs. And uh, would you say kind of it's a combination of doing both? Like I know you have a post on sauna, and I think that's one of the most powerful things people can do.
Yeah, definitely. It has to be a holistic, like total life endeavor, really.
Mm.
Like there's so many toxins that are just in the modern world because of industrial revolution, or you know what I mean? But
Mm.
I think kind of like another main point of what I'm trying to wake people up about is you can be buying all of the supplements and detoxing and going to the gym and getting fit, and all of that is absolutely necessary because your body is, like, maybe this is kind of silly to say, but your body is the home that you're never going to leave. So if you're letting your body fill up with toxins and inflammatory substances, and you're not eating right, you're not exercising, you're not moving your lymphatic system, you're not taking steps to detox, then obviously you're not going to be healthy. But if you're doing all of that stuff and you're also not concerned about exterior problems, then you're not going to be alleviating the toxic load that's on your system that you're constantly going to be fighting against. So the main reason why it's like the healthy home is the focus is because there's so many people that are talking about health of your body and things that you can do to raise your health by supplements or diet and all of that, fitness. But I think a lot of people kind of neglect really simple things that they can change in their home environment that will set up a foundation for health and that will like keep you from being bombarded every day by strange chemicals and things that are going to mess with your hormones and your skin and all of that. So it's definitely a combination of the two. I would never say like you need to get your home in order before you start going to the gym. I think people need to be exercising no matter what. But there are plenty of people that are experts in that field. And I'm just an enjoyer of physical exercise and have seen it positively impact myself. So I think we just need to start. And I know there are people talking about toxins in the home and things like this, but highlighting the fact that, you know, the clothing you wear, the water you drink, the furniture in your home, the materials in your house, if you can mitigate a lot of that, then you're just going to be allowing your body to do what it does best, which is take care of itself.
What do you think about going into a few of those specifically? Because we've been talking broad up until now, and it's been great to kind of set the stage. But let's get into some practical, like actionable tips now that people can do. Like I know before we recorded, we briefly talked about the dishwasher and the washing machine in the context of mold. So what are your recommendations there?
Yeah, so I mentioned to you, like, I'm not a mold mitigation or remediation expert, but my attitude towards it is prevention first. So it's just simple stuff like with the washing machine, for instance, it's wet. You sometimes leave wet clothing in there for a couple hours. I know I do occasionally. So if you keep the lid shut in there and it's damp, it's wet, there's moisture, there's areas of that machine that you can't get your hands into. So thinking that it's just going to remain clean forever is, you know, it's not the right way to think about your washing machine. So simple stuff where, you know, running a hot cycle with vinegar or baking soda or just hot water in general to rinse it out and keeping the lid open when you're not using it or when the cycle's done just allows the machine to dry out. And there are definitely images that I've seen online of washing machines that you can tell like it's very moldy. But I think just taking a quick assessment of the appliances that you're using and if they need cleaning, taking care of them because you don't want to be encouraging mold growth in your home anywhere, whether it's in your washing machine or your dishwasher or even your bathroom.
What
You
about
need a
humidifier too?
yeah,
Like I use one in the winter, and then when I'm not using it, I open the lid and let it air out.
yeah. I mean, there have been times in the winter here where I'm running the humidifier all night and I wake up and the floors are damp, the carpet is, or the rugs are damp. That's just asking for trouble. So my kind of thinking is just try and prevent your living space from being damp because that's what mold wants to grow. And it's just simple. It doesn't cost you anything to leave your dishwasher open when you're done. So just simple stuff like that. You know, I think everybody understands like that your shower is emitting like water vapor in your bathroom and it's going to get into areas that you don't regularly clean. I have a little humidity sensor in there and it's sort of obvious that it gets humid in that room, but it's a nice reminder to see it like, oh, okay, I just ran the shower and it's a 99% humidity in here. I need to run the fan,
Yeah.
keep the doors open, crack a window, stuff like that.
What are your thoughts on the spray products? Like I have several gallons I just bought in bulk of Total Clean. which I think is like a zinc or it's a copper iodine mixture, I believe, that eliminates odors and has a lot of properties I think they can't legally disclose, um, potentially for mold. But there's also like a fogger I got with, you can fog and do like mold things, or even like probiotic sprays, like home biotic I learned about like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. Any thoughts on any of those potential like
I
healthy sprays?
Yeah, I haven't tried those, but I think that kind of those things would be beneficial, especially like the misting thing for areas that you can't reach, like maybe in behind the drawers in your bathroom or underneath the sink, stuff that you're just not thinking about. It it doesn't seem like it would hurt to me to be proactive in trying to keep mold away. As far as the spray cleaning stuff, I just basically won't buy anything from a big box store. So if there's something that's made with natural ingredients, then I say go wild with it. I personally haven't used that stuff. But if it's as good as they claim it is, then it would probably be smart to have some of that on hand. I should probably get some.
Yeah, the probiotic one's interesting. I guess they can eat grime and stuff, but I just wonder. I don't know. I guess your house has a microbiome is kind of the idea. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I wanted to get into water because this to me is usually the starting point. Like when people ask me where do I start with my health, it's kind of a logical starting point, like the drinking and bathing water. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, anytime anyone is a, let's say, absolute beginner when it comes to health, that's pretty much the first thing I recommend. Because you're drinking water probably all day, you're showering multiple times a week, and the municipal water supply is, in my opinion, not to be trusted. And you're doing more harm than good if you're soaking in it or showering in it and vaporizing whatever kind of interesting chemicals they have decided need to be in it. Um, so yeah, I pretty much regularly recommend people to get a gravity filter of some sort, and shower their water filter. That's sort of been like probably top five things that I've recommended is the shower filter. And everyone that has made a purchase has texted me back or told me, oh, I noticed a difference in my hair or my skin. And again, it's just something you don't think about that you trust until you start looking into it. There's a there's a website that I refer people to. It's mytapwater.org, and you basically just type in your zip code and it shows you all of the fun things that they're putting in your tap water there and the quote unquote acceptable limits for each of these ingredients, which I I wrote in my book, not only are they exceeded year upon year, these acceptable limits, but I don't really want any quote unquote acceptable chemicals in my water anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of an eye-opening thing if you aren't really thinking critically about your health or haven't gotten to that point. So yeah, it's definitely a good place to start.
Yeah. And I think going back to the homesteading thing, one of the maybe the number one benefit to me, excuse me, of having a homestead is well water, having your own well, your own water source. But I think it's safe to assume that most people are on a municipal system, like you said, the My Tap Water website. And so if that's the case, you do have to, I mean, you still have to filter well and even spring water, in my opinion. I do.
Yeah.
But if you're not on those two, then you definitely have to put time and money and energy more so into optimizing the water. And I've been telling people for years, like you mentioned the gravity filter, and we may have some disagreements there, and that's fine. But obviously there's money involved.
Yeah.
So when I was working 3 jobs, making minimum wage, $1,200, and my first real water filter was like buying a car. It was a big deal, but I noticed a huge difference in my health after I did that and put it on credit. I would just jump to that instead of like dipping the toe in a gravity filter personally, but I'm biased because I sell a water filter. But
Yeah.
if someone's super strapped, I recommend just getting the highest quality bottles you can, ideally glass or better bottles, which are both used for alcohol brewing, like brewing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just fill up at your favorite water dispenser, whether it's your health food store. Or, I used to go to Sprouts and they had them, or Whole Foods or Jimbo's or whatever you have down there, Erewhon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And because they usually maintain and maintenance, and they have a log on the filter that shows that it's been serviced. Because I
Yeah.
think the problem with a lot of these home filters is people don't keep up with maintenance, and then especially the gravity ones, especially like Aqua True, I'm just going to name drop, that gets super disgusting and things build up, especially when it's exposed to light and it's just up there on the counter like that. So, yeah, not to get too complicated with it, but I mean, my just practical advice, if people are making, I don't know what minimum wage is now, but like just scraping by, is fill up your own water jugs instead of just dipping your toe in with a gravity filter. That's my 2 cents in it. But
Yeah, I mean, there's endless levels to water filtration. I have switched away from Berkey for reasons and information that I've seen about things that are getting drip fed to you in the tank. And I don't just use a gravity filter in my house alone. Like, it goes through a reverse osmosis process before that too. And then you get into reverse osmosis, and not all of those systems are created equal. Some of them are doing things that you wish they weren't, and some of them say they're doing things that they're not doing. So, yeah, I mean, it's all a matter of curiosity in your own life. Like, do you want to just blindly trust everything, or do you want to think skeptically or critically or curiously about the different things that you're using? Like, for instance, you were mentioning with the water filling up the glass jugs, the water delivery jugs that are like 5 gallon, you can get glass ones of those and go to any water store and get better quality than your tap water. You can fill those up. There's a website, I think, Find a Spring or something like that. You can find freshwater springs. There's a few in Los Angeles, which is surprising to me. But then I don't know the quality of the pipes they're running through. There's factors with all of this. But I think it's in everybody's best interest to at least get started somewhere. I would not start with Brita, but get started somewhere and then upgrade that over time. And that's kind of the overarching message that I'm kind of trying to talk about too, is don't try to do everything at once, or don't try to get like the Lamborghini of whatever thing at the beginning if you can't afford it. Every move in the right direction is going to help, and it's likely going to open your eyes to more things too. So I think forward movement is just super important in general.
absolutely. And my perspective on it is, as far as affordability and just order of operations, the shower filter would be first before the drinking water filter. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought about that, but that's it came second for me.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, you're in it, you're soaking in it sometimes every day. So it's just as important. Your skin is absorbing all of this stuff.
Or taking
That's
baths. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's on the same level at least. Like,
Mm.
you gotta filter all sources of water in your living situation, in my opinion. Some people are fortunate enough to own their own home and have a whole house filtration unit, filtering the one source of incoming. But if you can't do that, then at least put a filter on every source of water that you can, and stop cooking with unfiltered water. It's just about mitigation as much as possible. I think the shower filter is very important though, especially for people that are struggling with hair loss and skin issues. I know a lot of that comes from the gut too, but it's just about reducing the toxic load on your body, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have family in San Diego, and so I go down every 3 months or so for birthdays and stuff. And it's fun to experiment because I've tried different shower filters, and San Diego water, it's rough. It's probably on the level of LA, where the last time I checked, it was like 480 parts per million. I mean, this was over 10 years ago, but I doubt it's changed.
Yeah.
This was like North County, San Diego.
It's probably worse.
Probably. And yeah, it's been fun kind of, going from showering in vortex filtered spring water, like super blessed here, to the municipal water. I just feel sticky. Like even if I use my Mitolife shampoo in there, and my hair just feels like sticky after a shower for the whole day. So it's been interesting to try different shower filters and see the difference. And not to, you know, be a salesman or whatever, but my Mitolife one actually felt the best of all the ones I tried there, which is kind of interesting, which is just maximizing the KDF 55. Because a lot of companies, and I talk about this, kind of try to throw everything in one, where it's like KDF 55, 85, SIR 900 for fluoride removal. It's like, okay, what actually matters? It's the chlorine, right? That's chloramines, chlorine. That's what's really hammering us. And so it's really the KDF 55 that takes the blunt of that. And it also softens the water a little bit. So, sorry, I keep complicating things. We were talking about keeping it simple, but
no, I think it's good. Like people need to know what to look for because you can go on Amazon and there's a million shower filters on there. But I would never recommend somebody get like a vitamin C shower filter that I've seen. Like, what is that doing? Like, obviously your curiosity needs to get piqued and think, okay, I do need to shower or I need to filter my shower. But then what is the thing that I'm looking for? What am I specifically trying to mitigate? What is this vitamin C shower filter made in China actually going to be doing for me? So you're not overcomplicating it. Like there is a certain aspect to this where you do have to talk about the intricacies of the way that things work, because you can't just be like, hey, this filter's the best for no reason, you know?
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to increased oxidative stress, because that's what toxins do to us. And it's funny with the vitamin C thing, it works orally as well. So like there's even for public swimming pools, there's vitamin C sprays that companies make where you spray on ascorbic acid on your skin and your skin is somewhat protected. I'm super sensitive to chlorine personally. I get rashes and itchy.
Yeah.
But you could probably, in my opinion, just take a gram of vitamin C. If someone's exposed to chlorine regularly, I would be doing that several times a day personally. Vitamin E probably wouldn't hurt because they help recycle each other. So, yeah, there's, oral supplementation, I guess, is a whole nother conversation. But to me, the whole antioxidant factor, I think, is downplayed. People kind of overcomplicated it. Like, take liposomal glutathione or, CoQ10 or fish oil. It's like, no, what's more important? To me, it's vitamin C and E. Those are underappreciated.
Yeah. My point with the vitamin C filter is more like if it's coming from China,
yeah,
it could just be some goo that's dyed orange. Like, do you have no idea?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I've tried those filters when I was traveling and I didn't notice any difference at all.
Yeah, I've never noticed a difference with those.
Let's see. So any other thoughts on water? I think we covered it pretty well. Oh, bath filters. I wanted to talk about. So I briefly mentioned taking baths, and I think a lot of people take magnesium Epsom salt baths, sulfate or magnesium chloride baths, and they're trying those little bath ball filters. I get asked this at least every month by people, like, what bath ball filter do you recommend? And
yeah,
I think usually it's like a zinc copper blend, and it looks like a little foam thing in there, like it's super porous. and I've used it like over a decade ago. I don't know if it was doing anything.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't have any of those. I haven't tried any because they seem kind of gimmicky to me. I know I get targeted by Instagram ads on those all the time, but in my situation, I just fill the tub up with the shower filter. I have a he's going to be 1 in a week. I have a 1-year old, and there's no way I would ever like even test some of these filters that I see for the tub. I'm sure, there are options that, mitigate at least some of the chemicals in the water, but I would much rather use something that I trust, like a KDF filter, and just, okay, it takes 5 minutes extra for the tub to fill up.
yeah, yeah, it's better. And I'm glad that you mentioned cooking water too. I wanted to circle back on that because if someone's cooking rice or pasta, they're probably just filling up from the sink.
Yeah.
And what I used to do when I was living in the RV, and I think actually that I was filling my water crock at a ceramic water crock with a jug, and I had a certain filter that didn't have a tank on it, so it would trickle fill a 5-gallon jug, and then I would just use that on a upside down on a ceramic, spout crock thing. And I would use that to cook with. I would just put it under, and people could do that with like the water that we talked about earlier, way better than tap water.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of funny. When we were living in the apartment and just had the gravity filter and the shower filter, I would fill up water for cooking rice with the shower filter. So, I mean,
Helpful, yeah.
I I think you just have to be, if it's going in or on your body, you have to know what is in it, and you have to do your best to mitigate the toxins. Like, it seems like a no-brainer, especially after the conversation that we're having now, but a lot of people, like you're saying, they just fill it up in the sink, they don't think about it, and it's like, okay, sure, boiling the water is going to kill bacteria, but what is it going to do to the rest of the stuff that's in the pasta water? You're more than likely going to be ingesting that stuff. So just something to
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah, and even like washing produce, right? Like washing vegetables, lettuce for a salad or whatever. Like there's going to be residues that stick on the veggies, and I'm sure a lot of these are disrupting our gut microbiome. So I wonder if that's part of the popularity of the probiotic supplement market, is people are constantly sterilizing their gut, not only with antibiotics that are often highlighted, but basically the antibiotic effect of the tap water that people are consuming in a variety of ways.
Yeah, I use baking soda, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, can you be certain that you're removing everything? And you can either look at that two ways. One, you can get really depressed about it and give up, or you can just do your best. That's kind of my thinking behind all this. It's like, is being overwhelmed, letting yourself get stressed out about everything, going to stop you from doing what you can in your situation or not? Because it's very easy with exercise or anything. Oh, like I'm so out of shape. It's so hard to go to the gym and even do the treadmill or whatever. But if you don't start, how do you expect your situation to change? So maybe you can't afford this filter, that filter, this thing or that thing, but you can change something. There's always something in your house that you're going to need to replace. So my recommendation is, if some utensil that's made out of plastic or some article of clothing or furniture or whatever is worn out and you need to buy something else, just do yourself a favor and buy something that's more natural than what you had before. And over time, the, not to sound too woo woo, but the vibration of your space is going to be raised by the quality of materials that you're using. And you likely won't need to replace them as much too. So I'm just trying to save people money and keep people
Yeah.
happy, you know?
Well, I wanted to talk about uh, clothing because that's one that's really overlooked. Well, I think people are kind of getting hip to uh, underwear, and I get ads for phthalates are accumulating in men's testicles and
Yeah.
decreasing sperm count and testosterone and stuff. But same for women, right? Reproductive organs, and I mean, I guess women, that's a whole nother area with tampons and makeup, and there's a lot more exposure there, I think, than men get. I mean, we have like
Hmm.
clothing, deodorant, those are the big ones probably, but
Yeah.
women, it just stacks. There's tons of stuff. Um,
Yeah. So I have 10 years of experience in the garment industry. That's what I have been doing. And I've seen some very unfortunate things in that industry. You know, you can, on one end of the spectrum, just the amount of waste that it produces. Then you have on the other end of the spectrum, the chemicals used in some of the processes, like in the dye house, etc. There's a lot of things that go into clothing. I always used to tell people this, like you just imagine a t-shirt shows up, but it's like it takes so long to make that thing for you. And somebody is putting it together. There's so much that goes into it that you just are completely oblivious to until you start working in the industry, which I don't really recommend anybody does. But yeah, I think clothing is a huge thing. And you're right. People are waking up to the underwear stuff, which I think is good. But there's so much clothing that is made using petroleum based products, that's made using natural products, that's ground down into a pulp and soaked in a chemical mixture and then sold to you as healthy, like bamboo or viscose, um, even hemp. Some of that stuff is just marketing to get you to think like, oh, this is made out of hemp. It must be healthy. Did you know it was ground down into a paste and it was treated and became a chemical sludge and then they spread it over a screen like a piece of paper? And it's there's a lot that goes into it. So my my number one thing, and some people may know about this already, but there's a care label in every one of your garments. And it's generally in the bottom left of whatever you're wearing. So I have a t-shirt here. It's in the bottom left of this t-shirt. It tells you obviously how to take care of it, but it also tells you the fabric composition. And that, again, going back to what I said previously, is when there's something that you need to replace, just read the care label on whatever it is before you buy it. I don't know if there's going to be one in your
Orga-
shirt.
organic cotton is what I
Yeah.
have on. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just something that people just don't know exists. And
Interesting.
it's the same as reading food labels or labels on any sort of products. Like they have a legal obligation to tell you what's in it. So it's in your best interest to just put in the work to make sure what you're buying to be wearing on your skin every day is not going to be rubbing like strange forever chemicals into your skin.
Another point for the sauna too, right? But
Yeah.
that's fascinating about the bamboo viscose, because I've used those shirts over the years and they're some of my favorites because just they feel so like softer than cotton. Um, I don't think I've worn hemp, but it's fascinating, the whole point of how it's often treated with a chemical sludge. Um,
Yeah.
every every like birthday or Christmas when I go to a major box store like Kohl's, is a huge one, and I'm shopping for clothing for my mom or dad or older brother, gym clothes, any clothes really. It's amazing to me to not see any organic, always polyester, especially with like gym clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep telling myself year after year, I really shouldn't be clothing shop clothes shopping in a physical store unless it's like a really small hole in the wall boutique, like higher end in a store like Macy's or J.C. Penney or Kohl's. The chances of you finding something healthy to wear are like slim to none, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many levels to this too, because cotton is it's not brilliant white when it's made into fabric. It's got like a cream beige color to it. So if you like, I'm wearing a stark white cotton t-shirt right now. This fabric has been prepared for dye, which means that it's been bleached. So you can weigh the pros and cons of like, okay, am I wearing bleach right now, or did it evaporate? I don't know. So you can make your own judgment there, but obviously it's going to be better than wearing something that was made out of plastic waste or petroleum, because that is a composition, like a foundational composition of that garment is those chemicals.
And our skin, it's my understanding, is slightly acidic. I think like 5.5 pH, somewhere in there. And so when we sweat, we have the acid, it will absorb what's touching it, right?
Oh yeah, and especially like in your armpits and your, groin region, which are super, like they absorb everything. That's where your sweat's coming out the heaviest likely. And if you're wearing compression shorts or polyester clothing, like that stuff, you're just giving that stuff opportunity to get into your system when you're working out. And, I understand completely why people, especially women, want to wear polyester stuff
Wasn't there
because,
something recently with Lululemon? I saw a post the other day, Lululemon, like they were blowing up, that there was something super toxic about it.
oh, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure, but
yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I can't say for sure what it is, but these materials, spandex and polyester, they're made, if you just go on YouTube or do a simple search, you can watch, like they're excited to tell you, oh, we had a bunch of plastic water bottles lying in a giant pile in China, and we turned them into your new shirt. And they are happy about this. And I get the like recycling is a nice thing.
same thing with new cars. I've noticed that's a really common thing, especially with EVs, like recycled materials inside. And I can imagine the hotter it gets in there, 90, 100, 110 Fahrenheit, that's probably going to off gas to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything. It's everything really. Um, so just try and mitigate what you can. But I think with the clothing thing, you're going to be better off if you're just wearing natural materials. I know there's a lot of marketing behind like polyester, that it's sweat wicking or breathable, or, oh, the compression like helps your muscles recover better. All of these different things. Nothing is going to be more breathable than a linen shirt, and cotton is going to be more sweat wicking and breathable than a polyester shirt. It's just all this green marketing that is so prevalent across all industries, really. But it's these things that are like kind of back to what we were saying at the beginning, like they're just reimagining or reformulation of things that already worked, that really didn't need to be quote unquote upgraded or like redone. So just when your favorite t-shirt or whatever, like you need to replace it, just be reading the care labels. That's what I tell people. It'll tell you what it's made of. Just regular cotton to me is sort of like a +0. Like it's not going to be benefiting you anything really, but it's not going to be necessarily hurting you. But then you have like organic cotton, where you can be sure that the cotton wasn't grown with chemicals. That's going to be maybe, like a +10 or something. So there's a scale, but in general, I think you're going to be better off if you're not bombarding yourself with these like petrochemicals all day.
Yeah. I learned about uh, a shirt from my friend Andrew Latour the owner of Gemba Red, the red light therapy company
Yeah.
called Imana. It's like made in Italy. And I have like 30 or 40 of these shirts that I've accumulated over the last 3 or 4 years. And it's bioceramic material, like ceramics that have been embedded. And it's kind of like an elasticy material. So I don't know if that part's good, but they've shown in studies that it improves complexion and benefits skin health because it's reflecting your infrared light like back into your body. So you're
Okay.
not just like losing it. So you get like a slight warming effect, but there, you also get the benefit of infrared because it's like bouncing it back at you. So that's been kind of interesting. He sells them on the site. I also have like tan through. They look like Austin Powers colors shorts.
Yeah.
I don't know what material those are made out of, but it doesn't feel healthy.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the pros and cons, like that Imana clothing that you're talking about. Maybe it has some sort of stretchy material that's not like super good for you, but it has the additional benefit that you're talking about. And you're not going to find that at a Kohl's. That's going to be like some guy that has a passion for health that's inventing that product and selling it in small batches. And those kind of people are good to support. Like that's the good innovation that you need to look for. I'm not religiously going to say like you can never ever wear polyester or spandex or you'll die.
Yeah.
We're all going to die eventually. And sometimes you need an elastic waistband on your underwear or something.
Yeah.
But in general, it's just like how can I reduce the amount of stuff that I'm bombarding myself with? That's the main thing.
I just looked it up. It's Imana is a polyamide yarn with bioceramic materials embedded in the polymer matrix. I don't know, maybe you could translate that better. Sounds good.
Yeah, I anything poly, I that's pretty much a good like okay, that's not real. It's
Yeah.
I I mean to say it's not real is not right, but you know what I'm saying. It's just like if you can have a natural thing instead of the unnatural thing, you're going to be better off. But again, with that kind of thing, like if that's the benefit that you're looking for, you might not be able to find that without that manufacturing process. So I'm not going to say like you can't ever wear it or.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool that you had 10 years in the garment industry. Are you are you ever thinking of going back into it, like with a health mindset of creating something or
Yeah, at the end of last year, I developed an entirely organic like basics line that it's kind of on the back burner right now for me. And the thinking behind that was to provide an outlet for a lot of like health people to be able to produce actual clean garments for their merchandise because a lot of merchandise work that I was doing previous to that, it was a real struggle to find even 100% cotton options for things without them being like astronomically priced. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be doing with that, but it's still something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind to do eventually. But I think for right now, the thing that's going to make the most impact in people's lives is their home environment where they're spending most of their time. And I kind of just wanted to like do my own thing too. That was a lot of dealing with people who, in any business, dealing with people who don't understand what it is that you're doing can be sort of a struggle sometimes. So it wasn't as fulfilling as what I'm doing now, I guess.
yeah. Well, I'd support you if you end up getting back into it. It seems like there's just a huge opportunity. Like there's I know I would love to upgrade a lot of the clothes that I have. So I actually just found plastic free swim trunks. So I just got those the other day and companies marketing that. I got hit with the ads. Now everyone's probably going to get hit with the ads.
Yeah. I mean, as far as upgrading goes, like you can get you can get cheap cotton stuff. Like I I'm just wearing denim jeans right now and a white cotton shirt. You know, it's pretty simple stuff that you can find anywhere. And
Probably
like,
thrift stores too, right?
oh
Potentially.
yeah, I mean that if especially if you are concerned about, you know, the waste of the clothing industry or recycling in general, thrift store is going to be your best friend. And for the additional reason that things made in the past are likely going to be are are likely to have been made with more care and with higher quality, you know, components, etc. I have many vintage pieces of clothing that will probably outlast me. And then you'll have like, you know, a polyester or something that'll just like stretch out or tear, or you'll need to replace it. It'll smell like garbage.
I
Um,
I interviewed a guy that makes peat moss comforters, and he actually makes. He's going to send me it at some point, like peat moss vests, which I don't wear vests, but maybe I'll try it in the winter or something.
yeah, it's a definite style decision you're gonna have to make.
uh, on the topic of clothing, I think it's important to hit the detergent area. And what do you usually tell people as far as washing clothing? Because if they're renting and they don't own, they're not going to have a whole house filter, most likely, and so the clothes are going to get washed in tap water. It's just what it is, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you recommend after that?
I mean, to be honest, I don't filter my washing machine. It's not at the top of my list of things that I'm concerned about. Obviously, there are issues with using unclean water in anything that you're doing, but like many people, I'm just not at the level where I can have a whole home filter right now. So there are other things that are more concerning to me that I've addressed. As far as the detergent or the soaps that you're using, that to me is much more impactful and much more important to replace than being worried about the tap water. You know, you have these big brand, like pretty much anything that you buy at like a Walmart or a big box store is just going to be like absolutely horrendous for you. And it's just like in your dishwashing machine. Can you be certain, or can you be certain that all of those chemicals are going to be washed away by the water? You know, I personally don't think that that is possible. There's always going to be some sort of residue. And in many of the cases of these detergents, they actually sell you on things like, oh, this will make your clothing fresh for 24 hours. Or, you know, how are they doing that? It's not because they clean it really well and then it's pure and it doesn't have anything on it. It's because they're leaving something on your t-shirt when it goes through the washer that even your dryer isn't able to take off. So
Yeah.
I recommend people, and this goes back to what I was kind of saying about the homesteading, learning skills like as you get closer to that goal. There are so many people that have DIY recipes for non-toxic detergent, whether it be powder or liquid. And it's all so simple. It takes, you know, max 30 minutes to make enough to last you months. And you're going to have that recipe in your mind forever. You're always going to know how to do that. And likely, if you buy some of those ingredients in bulk, like borax or baking soda, Castile soap, you're going to be able to use those in other areas of your home as well. So I think it's in your best interest to be making cleaning solutions in general, but, you know, laundry detergent, make that yourself, learn a new skill. If you have kids, like show them how to make it. Um, because there's clean ways to clean your clothing that works just as well as the like purple goo that's coming out of the bottle at the store, you know.
At my first house here in Idaho, I tried the ozone generator. There are companies that like for decades they've been marketing like clean your clothes without detergent. You like hook up a little ozone thing for the
Okay.
water to go through before it hits the washer. I didn't notice. I don't think it was cleaning the clothes. Like they still smelled. Like if I sweat my clothes and they went through the washer and the dryer, they didn't smell clean. And so I ended up scrapping that. And it was a good idea. Like that would be awesome if it worked. But in my experience, it did not work. And so eventually I just ended up using the detergent with it and then just unhooking it all together. I was pretty bummed. So just to throw that out there, if anyone's thinking about one of those ozone laundry things, it didn't work for me at least. So
Yeah. I mean, you just got to test everything. And that's sort of an aspect of all of this that you can have fun with too, is you can try different things and see if they work. And then you'll know what you'll catch on to, like what kind of things to avoid like in the future, you know. But yeah, I mean, simple stuff to wash your clothes, like borax washing soda, sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda, and like grate a Castile bar, put that in like a gallon glass jug. It'll last you months. Like I said before, I have a 1 year old, and like any new parent knows, you're doing laundry all the time. And that has lasted me so long. You just buy that stuff in like a couple pounds in bulk. You can use the baking soda to wash your vegetables. You can use the borax in your dishwasher. You can, all of these things, like once you have them on hand, that's the nice thing too, is it's not just like, okay, I have to have this ingredient for this one thing. It's, you can use it for everything. Like every hand soap dispenser in my house is just a glass foaming bottle with purified water and Castile soap in it. And I use that same soap for window cleaners, for surface top cleaners. I use it sometimes if I need to add a little boost to some dirty clothes. You just have a jug of it and you can use it for everything. That's, like I mentioned earlier, like I'm just trying to save people money. Obviously, you have to buy certain things, but there are plenty of natural products that have multiple uses.
do you use vinegar, like white distilled vinegar for anything?
I do use that in like, I have a countertop and like a mopping situation that I use that for. Um, there, going back to like the homesteading recipe people online, there's going to be endless concoctions that you can make. So just having these ingredients around, I think, is beneficial. The vinegar, I know you can put like a bowl full of distilled white vinegar in your dishwasher and run a hot cycle, and that'll pretty thoroughly clean your system. You can do the same in your washing machine. And then, like we just said, you can surface clean your entire house with that too. And then you can add baking soda to that if you'd like. You can add essential oils to that if you like really are missing the Clorox smell of lavender. You know, there's natural alternatives for all of this stuff.
Let's jump into cookware and utensils because this is an area that I had fun with a couple years ago. I tried cast iron and sterling silverware. Like it took me months to find, but I
Yeah.
finally locked down a set of pure sterling silver. Forks, knives, spoons, and it was a full-time job. I think after 2 weeks of removing the tarnish like with the paste, and I didn't know what the paste was made of, but I'm like going through these rags and cleaning off because I think there's something in eggs. Like every morning I have 3 eggs sunny side up, and it's one component in the egg that reacts with the silver, like oxidizes it.
Yeah.
And so every day I was getting these dirty. So I just went back to the Costco, I think they're stainless steel or whatever, just the regular utensils. And then the cast iron, that was a whole thing of conditioning it and cleaning it intensely every time. And I went back to just the German cookware I'd been using. It's a Oziri brand. I think I
Yeah.
still get flack for that because I was like, are you cooking in Teflon? And people, this is one of the things that I think the health community is just so psycho neurotic about is the cookware. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm psycho about anything really. I feel like the listeners might be able to glean that I want them to take it in moderation, not be too religious about anything, because that's just ultimately going to stress you out and scare other people. But if I do see like nonstick pans at somebody like a family member's house, I'm not going to use those. And I'm going to recommend that they get at least stainless steel or a cast iron, something like that. And I know a lot of people, like I was just having this conversation over 4th of July weekend when I was visiting family. They were asking me about this, like, oh, everything sticks, even the non-stick stuff. I can't find anything that's good. The stainless steel, I every time I've used it, it's just awful. And I think it's unfortunate, but like you have to use stainless steel pans like in a particular way. And I'm not going to try and explain now like how to do it, but there's information online on like how to properly use a stainless pan. And it's just stuff you're not taught. It's not stuff that you're aware of. So it's easier to go to the store and buy something that's non-stick so you don't have to learn that skill.
Is stainless
So
steel easier to maintain or use than cast iron? Because cast iron was a full-time gig for me. It was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, definitely. I mean, pretty much every like high-end restaurant is going to be using stainless steel, and there's an art form to using it. You have to heat it up properly and then put the oil in. And again, like I'm not going to try and explain it, but the cast iron is definitely more of a chore to clean. But I think if you have both of those, like you can get pretty much everything done and you don't need to be using nonstick. Like when I see that in somebody's house, like I tell them, you need to get rid of this because they're like, oh, why? It's like, oh, it's got Teflon in it. Teflon, isn't that body armor? And it's just like everybody knows that that's not a natural thing. And why would you want that to be in your eggs or your food? So again, just like I was saying before with the clothing, if you have a nonstick pan and it's got the wear on it, you can see that the coating is coming off. Just replace that pan with something that's better. There's ceramic stuff. I know you've recommended like Extrema too. That's like a fully ceramic, right?
Yep. Yeah. I
I
still use
yeah,
those for heating up rice or pasta or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, there's options. It's just I don't want to tell someone like, hey, throw away all of the stuff in your kitchen today. But if you know something needs to be replaced, like just move forward in your life in a proactive way with your health in mind. And over time, you'll be able to look back and say, like, oh, I have a kitchen where there's nothing in here that's, going to be harming me or my family. And just trying to do everything, like we've talked about a lot of topics so far, and there's definitely more, but if you try to do everything at once, you're just going to end up getting like really stressed out. And that's going to affect your quality of life more than maybe even a shower filter or like not showering in a shower filter water would.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like hearing a new piece of information that you shared in the show and just picking one and just take action on it. Like I saw a video, I think it went viral a couple weeks ago of the plastic cutting board
Yeah.
and Bobby something, and he was like showing that he was like sawing it. I'm like, okay, is someone really going to cut like that on a plastic cutting board? But he was talking about how plastic shavings get into your food. So I've been using like bamboo cutting boards for years, and I think the only issue with those is you can get, I guess, bacteria build up in them or something. I just wash them with soap and water every
Yeah.
time and scrub them.
Yeah, that's what we do too. And you can coat them with coconut oil to sort of like moisturize the wood, which coconut oil is has antibacterial effects as well. So, yeah, I mean, like you're saying, just things that little things that need to be replaced, just consider a positive alternative, and you'll be headed in the right direction.
Mhm. Uh, wanted to talk about lighting. Is this an area that you talk about, like the flicker and the color temperature and the intensity of the brightness? That I've been having fun with that for years. And I mentioned neuroticism and psycho because I've been there several times in my health journey. Where at one point I was living in an RV. I think this was like 7 years ago now, and I coated the whole inside, at least the majority of it, in aluminum foil to get more natural light because I was finishing my college degree at my little standing desk there, and I think it was like 90 degrees out, and I had the door open. I was trying to basically bounce the natural light onto me during the day when I'm on my computer for hours. And then at night, it looked like a spaceship. I had red lights and even a UV light at night above my bed at one point. I was experimenting with ultraviolet at night. And you can get super crazy. And then LED versus, fluorescent. And there's so many details. So just curious your thoughts on lighting your home, artificial lighting in general.
Yeah, I do talk about it, and I think it is important for the obvious reasons of, helping your circadian rhythm out and not like stressing out your brain with like a strobe all the time. Like this last Christmas, I went to the hardware store to get some Christmas lights, and I just bought them without thinking, and I brought them back. And when I plugged them in, I had like a full body reaction to how like evil these lights were to be sort of silly about it. But I was like, what is wrong with these? And I tell everybody this. I forget where I learned it, but if you have an iPhone, I'm not sure about Android, but you can film in slow motion. And if you film any light in slow motion and then play it back, you'll be able to tell whether or not it's strobing. And these Christmas lights were like, I was in like a dance club. It was crazy. And they were so white that it was so disturbing to me. So I ended up returning them and like getting different ones. But all that to say is the slow-mo video thing, I think, is really, really fun because it just empowers you to be able to notice things that you wouldn't otherwise. Like when we moved into this place, I was like, okay, the bulbs in here are like relatively warm. Like this seems like it's okay. So once we got all the furniture in and everything, I did the slow-mo trick on all the lighting. And of course, like everything's strobing like crazy, which, I don't know the intricacies of how that's negatively impacting you, but I do know that it affects your brain on some level. And if nothing else, it's just adding stress to you in a way that like the sun is never going to do. The sun is never going to strobe. So why would you want like an additional lighting source to be strobing all the time? So I've replaced everything in here with incandescent bulbs for the most part, which I know are being phased out of the United States, unfortunately. The reasons for that, you can draw your own conclusions as to why that's happening. Do they want to torment us? I don't know. But yeah, I think lighting is really important. In our bedroom, we have a low flicker red LED bulb that Andrew from Gimber Red recommends. It's, maybe $7. I have a lot of his products too, not just the therapeutic stuff, but I know I have like a motion sensor bathroom light. So when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm not, deer in the headlights to myself. But yeah, I think getting out in the sun is extremely beneficial and something that people just don't do as much as they should. That's going to be, the most therapeutic thing in my opinion. But if we're trying to create a healthier home environment, an escape from the modern problems, like a place of solitude, a bubble, you want to be addressing as many aspects of your home as possible. And lighting is something that you're going to be using every day, just like your shower filter or your water or your air. So to ignore it and just be like, oh, it's not important, I think is not necessarily the smartest thing to do. So I would encourage people to try the slow-mo hack on their lighting, because most cheap LEDs, while they may be more energy efficient, have the potential downside of like negatively affecting your brain. And, there's plenty of other things you can do. Use blue blocking glasses when you're on the computer. If you work from home or you're in front of the screen all the time, you can use screen filters. You can change the color of your iPhone to a deep orange at night. And I just have a little button, whatever this button is called, on the side of the iPhone, that I just hold it and it turns my phone a different color. But I think it's really important.
Yeah. If I go to a health conference again, I'm definitely wearing blue blockers, like just the yellow tint ones, or even clear, because certain ones have a benefit for the flicker reduction.
Okay.
But the last time I went to one, I got severely sick afterwards. Like my immune system just took a nosedive. And, I was staying in a hotel
Yeah.
high up. I don't do well at hotels. There's just a really toxic environment. But being in the conference for hours straight under, it's almost like the Costco lighting, like a big store or Walmart, that the big overhead lights that are just super bright.
Yeah.
Those are so harsh. And I think I've finally learned my lesson. I don't care if it looks nerdy or if I look like a biohacker or whatever, but I'm definitely going to utilize that because, yeah, man, walking around it just for hours and hours on end under those lights is rough.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend if people do go to conferences, that's a great time to use just yellow, even blue blockers.
Yeah. I mean, the fluorescent lighting in stores or in your office, these are things that you may not be thinking about as being a negative impact on your health. But, it's, I do have a chapter in my book where I reference sort of like external, like what to look out for, like when you're traveling. And I mentioned, staying in hotels, in your office, things like this, going to a family member's home. There are things you can bring with you to, reduce certain issues. But that's the reason why setting up your home to be as healthy as possible is so important, because like when we just recently got back home from our 4th of July trip, it was like a huge sigh of relief being in this space compared to where we had been staying for a few days, because we have all of the things that we've set up here that facilitate like a calmer, healthier environment. But I generally always travel with a red LED bulb when we stay in hotels and stuff like that, because when the sun goes down, I don't want to be subjected to whatever lighting situation they've got going on. If I can bring a shower filter, I will. There are things you can bring along with you, like you were saying with the blue blocking glasses, like it may seem like an insurmountable list of things to do, but these are also things you can use at home, like while if you work from home, you can have some nice orange glasses. You can take them with you when you go to the conference, when you stay in a hotel, when you're on a plane, etc. I hope that people realize that everything has the potential for multiple uses, and ideally you wouldn't have to be buying something like for each trip that you're taking.
Yeah. I I think it might be my favorite Therasage product. They have a good sauna too, but they have a little ozone and negative ion unit. It's only like $150. And you can use it in the car to clean your car, like with ozone. When I'm not in there, I run it. Or like recently I was in a hotel and I ran the negative ion feature, and you could like do it overnight, and just to add some, balance to the room. And I notice a difference. Or on long drives, sometimes, if it's 4 or 5 hour journey, I'll use the negative ion feature, kind of keep me alert.
Yeah. That's actually something that I've been like thinking of getting next, is something like that. I know I'm fortunate enough to be like moderately close to the ocean, but it's not like really probably touching me where I'm at. But yeah, that sounds really cool. especially in the car. I mean, I would be interested to kind of get your thoughts on electric vehicles because you have a couple, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I have three solar arrays on pole mounts, and I've been 100% off grid, off and on for the last 3 4 years or 3 years. And so I have an interesting perspective because I think with EVs, a lot of people associate it with public charging, like superchargers, taxing the grid.
Yeah.
I've actually not done that, especially like in the summer. And my perspective on it is just sovereignty of, unless you can dig for petroleum on your mountain, which there is some up here in Idaho, you can make your own fuel from the sun. And yeah, it's a huge investment and it's not free and it's a huge upfront cost. But to me, the priceless aspect is being able to fuel up at home, or quote free. So yeah, I'm a fan of them. I think they obviously have their downsides. The cobalt slave labor thing
Yeah.
has been popularized, but slave labor is involved in iPhones. And actually, just to take it a step further, like the newest Teslas don't use cobalt. A lot of EVs do not use cobalt. I think even the new truck with Tesla doesn't have cobalt in it. So there's a lot of misconceptions and I think hate. And I think it's become so politically, emotionally charged that people associate them with liberals and the greenwashing movement you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier and stuff. And uh, I think there's upsides and downsides to EVs and to gas and diesel ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles. And I've spent countless hours looking into this. And it's no question that EVs are way more efficient than ICE vehicles as far as the energy getting to the wheels to actually move the vehicle. It's like 60, 80 times more efficient. I think an ICE vehicle is like 20% efficient, and EV is just factually 80% efficient. So there's no arguing that.
Yeah.
But I think there's obviously better ways forward. Like I invested in Aptera. It's a Carlsbad based company that's creating the first solar vehicle. And I think if they succeed, which they're close, that will be the ultimate because it's low price point. I think 30 to 40K, two-seater, three-wheeler, 700 watts of solar on the roof, where you get 40 miles a day just from the sun. So you might not ever have to plug in, which
Wow.
is huge for people like living in apartments or a lot of people that aren't homesteading and aren't off grid. It's like, okay, just park on the street and you never ever have to plug in. So
Yeah.
that's, I think people are afraid of change. They're afraid of the future. They're very triggered by things that are advancing forward. Just a lot of, I think, thinking everything's a conspiracy, everything's to screw us over. I think that's not the way to live life. It's a very stressful mindset that
Yeah.
I've personally moved away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I generally, with everything that I post, I try not to contribute to that. There's so much online, like I was saying before, just like this will kill you, that will kill you, this is horrible, just constant, constant. And it's easy even for me to just be like, oh, like what's the next thing that's like poisonous to me? But like we've been saying, it's just like weigh the pros and cons. Everybody's situation is different. What are the things that are most pressing in your situation? And deal with those first, and then just move out into the next area from there.
I love it. Yeah. And that it's a great segue to EMFs because I wanted to talk about that. You asked about electric vehicles and you're going to fry your balls. You're sitting on a giant battery. And then you look at modern vehicles and they all have Bluetooth. I mean, you have to go like pre-70s to get a low EMF vehicle. That
Yeah. The reason I asked you about the Tesla partly was the EMF, but I also have a car that's from last year. And it was only when our baby came that I realized the entire front of it is a TV, basically. And we're trying to like not do screens. And every time we get in the car, it's like the entire dashboard is just a TV. And it's got like an eco battery drive aspect to it that I'm sure is there's like a battery somewhere in the car that I will never be able to find, you know, but I yeah, I mean just with the home settings like okay, I'm going to get like a 1980s Chevy truck and I'll never be subjected to anything. But is that really in everyone's best interest? And like you're saying, like the sovereignty of the EV is huge and it may outweigh the cost of like the EMF exposure that somebody might be concerned about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. If you have the luxury, like if you won big on Bitcoin or something, like instead of buying a Lamborghini or something, I would rather buy solar panels. For me, the energy aspect of life is huge. Not only human energy, but powering my life with electrons externally is really important to me. So yeah, I think it's priorities too. And yeah, it's funny about the TV. Yeah, most cars have switched to that. I always go back to the EMFs with just fortifying the system to be resilient to them because we're not going to get away from them. You know, Elon keeps putting satellites up there, and there's Starlink's stations on the ground, uh, and more 5G towers are going up, usually by schools and churches,
Yeah.
and there's no getting away from it unless, like you said, you move to Ecuador and buy old Chevy or whatever, you know, just like live a not really practical life for most people. I go to vitamin C and melatonin, and you can just keep adding to the list: magnesium, zinc, there's selenium, there's iodine. There's so many nutrients that are protective. I know like Doris Lowe just targets the dynamic duo, vitamin C and melatonin, which work systemically in different ways, but you can buy those in bulk. You don't have to buy Mitolife, buy them in bulk powder and dose on those every day. It's just the ascorbic acid you have to be careful on your teeth because it will erode the enamel. That's why I take it in a capsule. But vitamin C and melatonin are your EMF protectors, in my opinion. And then you add magnesium to that and zinc, and you're like pretty fully protected, and you can just keep adding to it. But I just bring those two up because they're the cheapest, especially in bulk. Uh, so just throwing that out there because EMFs, there's so much doom and gloom, and then you either have that or you have all the energy devices like the phone stickers and stuff, which
Yeah. I know. I was hoping to kind of talk about that because I think those are funny. I mean, I have like I think I have a Shungite sticker on my computer, but as far as like the Instagram marketing is concerned, that's just like hitting me all the time. The like little stickers. I pretty much think about it in a similar way to you. You know, you need to get your diet right. You need to be living a healthy lifestyle and supplementing certain minerals and compounds that you're not getting from your food. And that may be because of the farming practices or the soil quality, whatever. But being proactive, just like with the mold, is taking steps that you can take because you're never going to get away from the cell towers. You're never going to get away from the power lines. If you bought a car in the last 10 years, you're never going to get away from whatever battery or screen is in that. You're more than likely always carrying your cell phone in your pocket. You know, we're having this interview on a computer. I've got another monitor on top of that. I have a Wi-Fi router in this room behind me. There are certain things that it's just not realistic to get rid of. So my kind of thinking is just mitigating that to the best of my ability, whether that be through supplementation or, you know, I have a couple different EMF mitigation devices that make very nice promises about what they do. Like I have a Somavedic upstairs that, you know, tunes your body to its frequency rather than the Wi-Fi router, for example. And I just got like a Schumann resonance generator from eBay the other day that I just like have on my Wi-Fi router too, which for those who don't know, I mean, I'm relatively new to it too. It's just emitting the frequency of the earth, like the natural frequency. But I have I made a post about this, I think a couple days ago, maybe last week, about just setting up like a home office in the most beneficial way that you can. And I recommended like a grounding pad for your feet. I know that you can also get grounding sheets and you can actually get on the ground, which a lot of people don't do, and just walk barefoot. You can get in the ocean, which we were talking about the negative ions and how beneficial those are. Those are also in thunderstorms. So if you don't live near the beach, so there's ways that you can mitigate their effects on your body. And I think it's better for you to be proactive about things. I can't say that this Somavedic or this Schumann resonance generator is shielding me completely from everything, because I'm still talking to you right now and I'm still getting text messages on my phone. It's not like it's blocking those things. But if you get like crazy about like painting your walls and even wearing some of the like silver stuff, like how do you know it's not trapping that stuff
Mm.
inside of it? You know, like,
Yeah. Well, Brian Hoyer, a friend of mine, this was like 3 or 4 years ago when I was into it. We were sitting down eating a burger, and he said it's more about the harmonics that it creates. So you have the frequency coming in, it hits the silver threads in that clothing, the baseball cap, the jacket, whatever, joggers, and then it'll create a secondary frequency that goes into your body. We don't know the effects of that. It's just kind of a lot of unknowns.
yeah,
And that's why I stopped wearing them. But the Mercola EMF tent is pretty cool. The Silver Shield, I think it's called, because I used that for the first time at a hotel a few weeks ago. Just me on the bed, I just put it in the middle of the bed, brought the pillow in there, brought sheets in, and my skin wasn't touching the silver, and the silver tent was grounded. And a little bit of an investment, but if someone were to stay in hotels frequently, I think that's a great way to go, especially if you're like several stories up.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm going to be in New York City in like a week and a half, I think. And last time I was there, I just made it a priority of mine to go to Central Park and walk around barefoot like every day. And it's part of that is like you have a kid with you and you're all of a sudden like, on another level of responsibility and thinking about these things. But that's just a way to like mitigate. If you get off an airplane, do some stretching, go try and get outside, get some sunlight, get your bare feet on the ground. It's positive moves in the right direction. And, you can get as crazy as you want with the EMF stuff. I feel like over the next 10 years, we're probably going to learn way more about it and like what's actually happening. Like I've referenced this before, but, I've been carrying a cell phone in my pocket for 15 years at least. And I don't know what that's done to me. But if I spend my days worrying about that, is that really beneficial to my quality of life? It's more for me like, okay, when I'm carrying my kid around, I'm not going to have the cell phone between me and him. I'm not going to like let him play around with my cell phone. It's just stuff like that, it's just about how you react and like approach to the knowledge really more than anything. And like you're saying, like the correct supplementation and just prevention.
yeah, I've heard that adipose tissue, like just fat, is an insulator from EMFs penetrating. And I know a lot of people put, instead of their phone in their pocket, they put it in their back pocket.
Yeah, I do.
And I think that's just like a easy switch. And yeah, I know EMFs decrease bone density and there's effects on bone. I tend to just turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when it's on my body. And then if it's going to be on my body for a long time, airplane mode, or I just hold it in my hand as I'm walking around, which I'd rather my hand get hit than my thigh and reproductive organs.
Yeah, that reminds me, as far as like things that I do additionally at home, like I don't use Bluetooth like headphones or really any Bluetooth if I can avoid it. Obviously, there's things in like your remote and like speakers sometimes, but I have my Wi-Fi on a Christmas light timer, so it turns off when I go to sleep. I know if you have like a Ring doorbell system that isn't wired, that will turn off your whole system. So some people aren't able to do that. But you can also not buy the Wi-Fi booster that they encourage you to buy that's going to just bring the Wi-Fi router closer to your bedroom. And I think another thing too, like with the cell phone, is something that I tell people is don't charge your phone next to your head at night. And that's just something I did for years without thinking about it. You know, like everybody's not everybody, but most people are on their phone before they go to bed or when they first wake up. So it makes sense to charge it there. But try to get in the habit of charging it like away from your body, because I think when it's charging, it's more destructive as far as like a EMF frequency situation is concerned. So I always have my phone on airplane mode when I can. I use my phone on speakerphone when I can. It's just little things like this that really they don't cost you anything. It's just a little bit of forethought into like how you're going to use the device, you know?
Do you talk to people about their mattress and the metal springs in it?
Yeah, I have mentioned that. I think that's something that I'm kind of cautious to demonize like really hard because it's so prevalent. And for most people, a mattress may be like one of the more expensive things that they've purchased. You know, they can be thousands of dollars. So I don't really want to be the like doom and gloom merchant who's going around saying like you have to throw everything that you own away. But, you know, if you do need to replace your mattress, a wood frame, a natural material, that's going to be in your best interest moving forward. I know you've had a guy on that makes the like natural latex bedding with natural organic wool and stuff like that. But another thing you can do is just stop using synthetic fabrics for your sheets. You know, if you have a layer between you and the bed, this isn't really like the EMF mitigation. Maybe if you have a grounding sheet, but you know, you spend a third of your life in bed. So if you're concerned about the clothing that you're wearing and its effects on your hormones, and then you jump in a polyester bed and you're sweating at night or even just rolling around in it, it's just something else to consider when something like linen, which is extremely breathable, is actually going to be more comfortable and beneficial to you, you know? So going back to what you said about the springs and the mattress, I do think that that probably is just inviting EMFs to, you know, surround you more. But I don't know. I'm hesitant to tell people like your mattress is killing you, you know, because it is expensive. But just when you need a new one, just think about what it's made out of and try to get the best thing that you can afford.
Yeah, it's funny seeing like I think it's 8 Sleep, and there's a lot of like bed modification things. That one actually has a monthly subscription, which is crazy. But you know, the cooling beds or the tracking covers, and a lot of these seem to be made from polyester or synthetic materials. So I've experimented over the years with, you know, the ones that pump cold water through,
Yeah.
but I would rather just make the room cooler with opening the windows or using AC than that direct cooling effect. I mean, I'll be sleeping in a bunker, I think, by next summer. So that'll be kind of natural geothermal underground cooling, which will be nice.
Yeah.
But that'll be a whole nother. I'll have to make a whole show on optimizing the bunker. It'll probably apply to 1% of the population.
No, I mean, it'll be cool. I definitely think you should document it. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in that project.
Yeah, different materials for sure versus a normal house. So I won't have to deal with carpet and so.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump into some of the Q&A questions? Because you actually answered a lot of them. Like someone asked about the mattress, but there's some other good ones if you want to go into that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Garbage disposal cleaning tips.
This is actually something that I've been dealing with. I've been putting baking soda down my drain, and some distilled white vinegar. I think if you really want to get crazy with it, you should probably just replace the unit if you're dealing with some sort of unsavory smells coming out of it, because like the rest of the things in your kitchen that get wet, you're just inviting, mold growth in there. And if you're putting like raw food and strange different things down your drain, it's probably best to just replace that.
Yeah. I've been fortunate the last like 4 years, just in cabins up here, there's been no disposal. And so I just have to keep emptying into the trash, which is probably less maintenance.
Yeah.
One less thing to do.
You can throw it on your garden and feed your soil.
That's true. Yeah. Proper attic and roof ventilation. Mess.
I would say if you can get up there, or if you do go up there, you probably just need to make sure that you're getting proper airflow. I haven't been up in the attic of this house, but we don't get a lot of rain here in LA. So I think basically just the same with the moldy stuff. Just try to prevent any leaks or any sort of creatures building their nests and defecating everywhere. And then I don't know about like modern homes, if there is any sort of filtration that you can put over that ventilation, but it might be in your best interest to look into something like that.
Yeah, I know in my California house last year, it was built in a weird way to where the bathroom vented into like one of the attic spaces. Mm-hmm. So all the moisture from the shower was just getting into this enclosed room, which was just a crazy design to me. Like it should go always outside the building, not back into the building.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because it's dark there. So, I mean, in California, it's cold at night. So I was in the apartment that we were in, there was a leak in the roof and they were telling us, oh no, it gets hot enough to where it'll kill everything that the water got in there. I was like, yeah, we need to leave.
This is an interesting one. Talk about window AC units.
Yeah. Okay. So you may not know this, but not you, but the listener, there is a filter that needs to be changed. And if you're not changing that filter, you're going to be building up tons of just dirt and stuff, moisture in that unit, especially if you have it off for long periods of time. So what I've found and what I recommend is that you keep it on all the time, keep the air circulating through it. So you keep it dry and you don't allow moisture to build up in there. If you do that, you don't have to have it on the AC setting. It can just be on the fan setting. But that's what I recommend is the filter needs to be addressed because a lot of people never clean those or don't change them. And then I would just run it all the time, at least on fan.
Interesting. Because if you turn it off, you're saying the moisture will just kind of sit in there.
Yeah. I mean, the units that I've used, when they turn off, you hear them like dripping and leaking because the coils are warming up and the condensation is dripping down into the unit. If you don't have air moving through it, it's just going to be settling there. And then anything that wants to grow there will.
Makes sense. Granite countertops versus quartz. Is the radon from granite a huge risk? And is it radioactive?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
That's a crazy one.
Speaking of crazy, like I kind of question like the radiation stuff. I don't know, because you see like stuff from the 1800s where they were like heating their home with like uranium and stuff. I don't know. I don't think I can really speak to that.
Someone asks, are air purifiers necessary?
Well, I think they should probably listen to your episode about that, where you interviewed, I forget his name,
David
but
Milburn, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and we kind of touched on it in the beginning of the episode. I would say if you have an HVAC system, get that filter set up as high as your system can allow, because that's going to push air through your house a lot more and better. And a lot of people don't frequently change those filters. So if you haven't in the last 90 days, probably go take a look at that. And then if you don't have a HVAC system, then yeah, I think they're extremely beneficial. I don't think you necessarily need to get like a crazy HEPA one, but also on the other end of the spectrum, something cheap from Amazon probably isn't going to be doing what it says either. So there are plenty of companies. I recommend them to people, especially that live in big metropolitan cities like LA, where there's a lot of smog.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it seems like an investment, kind of on the level of the water filter. And yeah, if you're in a population dense area, it's there's going to be a lot floating around in the air, so it's tricky.
Yeah.
A ton of questions on mold. Because when I posted this on social media, I used one of your mold posts, so I think half of the questions are mold related. So someone asked, how common is mold in older homes in the walls?
I am not a remediation expert. I will preface my response saying that, but I think it's very likely that there's mold in older homes. It's Mold is so resilient and nefarious that to eradicate it completely in like a house that's over 50 years old, I think you have to do some pretty extensive work. So I think this is a good reason to have air filtration, to be being as proactive as you can about moisture and ventilation. And if you feel like you're having the symptoms of mold exposure, definitely don't look for me to solve your problem. Find an expert who does remediation and have them come in and assess your situation, because it's a serious thing. And I don't want you hearing me saying, oh, prevention is the best, when your situation is actually negatively impacting the health of your family. You need to just hire an expert to come in, you know.
Yeah, and I've talked to multiple people that have like had to throw away or sell all of their belongings and move, and like actually talking to someone that had to hop hotels or that's like on the move because of moldy apartment. I guess it's a big thing with people that rent apartments. It's just a hazard that's not disclosed, that
Yeah.
they just, okay, next tenant, like they're just, I guess that's a big thing going on right now, unfortunately, where apartment owners know there's mold and they don't care as long as they get their checks coming in, which is pretty sad. I just learned about this the last few weeks. So
Yeah. I mean, in our previous apartment situation, our landlord came in and got angry with us for some reason that our bathroom didn't have a fan in it. And I told her, okay, well, you own the building. If it's an issue, just install a fan. And she pretty much told me flat out that she didn't want to spend the money to tear away the wall and then find something that may need to be addressed. So I would just say if you're not tipping your landlord, they're likely not going to be concerned. I'm joking, of course, but um, yeah, I mean, you need to ensure that you have proper ventilation. If your landlord is not handling something, then put a fan in your bathroom. Make sure that you're venting that stuff. That's what we did, because if they would have opened those walls up, I'm sure they would have found all kinds of stuff.
yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite mold experts, PJ Harlow. I recommend people look into her, Harlow. I had a show way back with her, probably still on YouTube. You could look up, and her whole education is mold. So I would definitely check that out. Um, Someone asked, top or front loader for the washer?
I personally don't think it matters too much. I think really the biggest way that it matters is if you have delicate clothing, because if you have a top loader that has like a central cone, your clothing can kind of get wrapped around that and it'll get destroyed. Again, this is clothing manufacturer Josh talking here. But as far as the mold mitigation, you just need to keep it open and air it out and run a hot cycle every once in a while. Throw some distilled white vinegar in there, baking soda. You can put borax in there too. Just make sure that you're cleaning it and visually inspecting it. That's what I would recommend. I don't think it matters too much either way.
Awesome. John asked top 5 things he'd get out of every normie's house.
Okay, let me think about this. I think processed foods is a big one. Synthetic fabrics, tap water, room sprays, and fragrances. So like Yankee candles and the like. And then chemical filled hair products that could be, toilet paper, paper towels, makeup, deodorant, body creams, all of that stuff. You need to be reading the labels and you need to not be bringing it into your house if it's filled with chemicals. There are plenty of natural options for all of those. I know there's healthy makeup. I know that, there's healthy soaps, there's healthy deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes. You can get non-bleached, natural toilet paper and stuff like that. But I think those would probably be my top 5. And if you were to say, go into your parents' house and give them that list, I think that also will spark a curiosity in them that will continue to evolve in a positive way for them, because that's pretty like wide net to be casting. But yeah, I think that's probably what I would choose.
I think you brought up toothbrushes. I just saw a guest I had on, the B1 guy, Elliot Overton. He made a post recently about feces particles on your toothbrush,
Oh
because
no.
because it's in the same room, and I think it could travel like 15 feet or something crazy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So I know for years I was using those little snap-on essential oil, covers that goes over the bristles on your toothbrush. Have you looked into that, or do you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, I think it's entirely possible that that's happening. I would just say that my main concern would be that you're using normal, like natural materials. Like I have a boar bristle and wood brush. In my thinking, maybe this is woo-woo, but things like wool are naturally antimicrobial. Maybe something like boar's hair also has a similar effect in the bristle of the toothbrush. And I mean, this is like, I recommend people not use the like blowing hand dryers in public restrooms for the same reason. It's just blowing all of that stuff all over you and all up off the floors. And if you've ever worked at a restaurant or any place that has a public restroom and you've had to clean it, I know that you didn't clean it spotlessly because you wanted to go home and clock out, and everybody's like that. So yeah, I mean, it's disturbing to say the least, but I think address the materials of the things you're using first. And then if you want to get some like UV light or sanitize your brushes like periodically, I think that's going to be a good idea, but it's the materials that I care most about first and foremost.
This might be the last one here. Thoughts on carpets? I know you made a post on this, how they're kind of like sponges, right?
Yeah. I have a ways back, if people scroll down, a post on like why you shouldn't wear your shoes inside as well. And I think they kind of go hand in hand. Look, you regularly clean your clothing and your bath towels and your sheets and your rugs because those things collect dust and dirt and grime and they need to be maintained. So if you do have carpets, more than likely that carpet is made out of some kind of petrochemical synthetic fiber because it's going to be more resilient over the long term because it's made out of plastic. So if you live in an older home and you own it, I would say see if there's some nice wood flooring underneath that carpet because not only is wood natural, but it's easier to clean and it's not synthetic. So again, like if your entire house is carpeted and you enjoy carpet, I don't particularly like living in a carpeted place, but you just need to be regularly maintaining it, like vacuuming it all the time. Don't wear your shoes on inside because you're just going to be tracking in a bunch of stuff. And get like a steamer from Home Depot. You can rent those for a day, do a deep clean, 4 times a year, as much as you feel is necessary, especially if you're tracking in a lot of stuff or you have kids. But the main thing I would say is just try to maintain it and keep it clean. And if you do have like a new build or you're redoing your floors, just be aware that some of the fake woods, like the linoleum, things like that, they also have suspicious chemicals and glues in them. So again, it's just about weighing the pros and cons of what project you're addressing at the current time. I'm not going to tell you to rip out all your carpets, but if you have them, you should be cleaning them just as much as any other fabric in your house.
Yeah, I was raised in a carpeted home. I think
Yeah.
the entire house was carpet for 20 years, and my allergies were always so bad. I remember daily I would have these huge sneeze attacks, and there were also 2 cats running around, which I think the stuff they were bringing in from outside, just collecting on the ground. And not to say my parents didn't vacuum. I think, when I got old enough, I vacuumed too. But yeah, I think there's going to be spots that you miss, especially like around items, cat tree or whatever. It's like, there's going to be spots that you're not going to hit. So yeah, I fully agree. Kind of stick with wood if you can. And
yeah, if you have animals or kids, like it's just going to make it way worse.
Yeah. Well, Josh, this was awesome. Your Instagram is at Healthy Home Josh.
Yes. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I love talking to people. But yeah, this has been awesome, Matt. Thank you.
It's been fun. And you have a book, is that right?
Yes, it is called Toxic with Toxic crossed out. And the subheading is A Comprehensive Guide to a Healthier Home. The reason I wrote it was to give it to my family and my friends that I, go to their houses and I am avoiding tons of things. I'm pointing out tons of things. I wanted to be able to create a guidebook that is simple to understand, eye-opening, but not depressing or scary. So that's why I wrote it, is to just generally raise the education of people. And if you have friends and family that are unaware about this stuff, I think it's a good place to start them.
And could they find that through your Instagram, or where can we get it?
It's on Amazon.
Cool.
I self-published it there, and then there'll be an audiobook in probably the next few weeks.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I'll put a link. Put a link to the Amazon one. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Josh. Yeah, I think people are going to have a lot to, even if they just take one thing out of the show, there's so many things that you shared that are helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I hope to help.
Yeah. I mean, this is simple information, but it's stuff that can absolutely stack and improve someone's life. So mood, mental functioning, right? Productivity. It's really important. So, yeah, thanks, man. Stick around as we close out the show. Well, I hope you guys gained some actionable items to work on with your living environment. When I gaze out at the natural health landscape, I see a lot of emphasis on sunbathing, grounding, eating local, eating animal based, all of these things, which are great. But this subject, which Josh covered in the show, is just glossed over. And even the simple tip of leaving your dishwasher and your washing machine door cracked open is huge. That could save you years of brain fog and potentially having to throw out all of your belongings and jumping hotel to hotel, like some people with mold illness have dealt with. I thought the water filtration discussion was interesting, and Josh's perspective of not going big right from the start and getting the best filter on the market. I just respectfully disagree because of my experience, which I live from my experience. I think that's the best way to learn. When I started my journey back in 2010, I was drinking the Berkey because that was what my family was using. And then I started collecting well water from different wells. I tried to source spring water and was never successful. Then I got into distillation, and then I was ozonating distilled water and tried a couple different reverse osmosis water machines. And then I found one that actually used reverse osmosis with deionization with Coresex media, which is magnesium injection at the end. And that is the time where I actually noticed my health skyrocket to the moon, basically, and beyond. And before then, I was just kind of hovering around and I wasn't really making progress with my brain fog and basically just my progression in life. I think the quality of our water really affects the quality of our life, even from a metaphysical level. So my experience was I wish I would have gone big from the beginning, and maybe I wouldn't have gotten all the lessons and learning experiences that I would have. But if I could go back and talk to myself in 2010, I would have told myself, research, spend more time on this than green juicing and Ayurvedic herbs like I was doing, and colon cleansing, and go deeper into the water aspect because everyone thinks they have it figured out and they really don't. I do not think unfiltered raw water is ideal, as anti-naturalist as that may sound. Unfortunately, the Industrial Revolution happened and we had acid rain, and what comes up must come down, and it came down from the air into our aquifers and ended up in our underground water sources. So it has to be filtered with deionization, which removes the sulfuric acid and nitric acid. Not to mention, if you're on municipal water, they use acid form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid. And there's a myriad, a laundry list of acids that are used if you're on city water. So that might even be a bigger reason to have deionization. You know, people think the Mitolife filter is just reverse osmosis. That is false. The Mitolife filter, 7-stage, has deionization and it has 2 stages. So there's redundancy there. And you really want to remove those acids. It's not for any woo-woo alkaline lifestyle message. It's because those acids do a lot of damage to your body. So I didn't want to make this a long drawn out ad for the Mitolife 7-stage water filter, but it is a part of this discussion. And I think optimizing your home environment, yes, you can go to the health food store. You can fill up jugs like I did at the Ocean Beach water store for several years when I was living in an apartment. And that works. It's a lot of energy and it's a lot easier to just go to your kitchen sink and fill up the jugs right there, or fill up your water bottles or whatever you have. So those are my thoughts on it. Like religion and everything else, everyone has their own belief structure around filtered water. Mine is quite different, I think, from most people. I'll put the links below where you can check out Josh's work. On Instagram, it's Healthy Home Josh, and also put the link to his book, Toxic: A Comprehensive Guide to a Healthier Home. My website is matt-blackburn.com. Recently, I made a few upgrades, and I'll continue to spice it up and add more to it. But that's a great starting point. It's a gentle protocol. It's practical. It makes sense. We're just working with nutrients. You're not taking really strong detoxifiers. On the shop tab, you can see my recommended products, and I'm slowly souping up a bunker. If you follow me on social media, I purchased a huge underground bunker, not because I'm afraid of the future, but because it's freaking cool. And I have a lot of cool plans for it. And it's going to be just a lot of fun to play around in there and really tap into the Earth's energy and also the geothermal controlled temperature. Up here in North Idaho, we get pretty hot winters. It's been in the 90s, often high 90s for several weeks. So to not have to have electric power going into air conditioning units, to me, is huge. I am really into energy sustainability, really into solar panels, really into any kind of renewable sovereignty that you can get into your life. I think that's really the future, because people tend to overlook the energy that it takes to run their life outside of their body. So as I was saying, in the shop tab, all of my products there, and as I soup up the bunker, I'll probably be talking about quite a few of them and how I'm integrating them into that setup over the next couple of years. I'm the founder of Mitolife, Mito for mitochondria. It's my supplement company. You can find that at mitolife.co. If you click on the shop tab, it's easier to navigate on a desktop. You can see we have coffee, clean shampoo and conditioner, grounding sheets, which I recommend grounding rod to earth. My friend Luke Story just interviewed Paul Harris, which was a guest of mine. Paul is a brilliant man that designed this Therify device that utilizes the research of a lot of different really smart scientists. Everyone's familiar with Nikola Tesla, but combining it with a lot of other guys into one healing package, which is called the Therify Plasma device, which I have. My cats love it. I often fall asleep on it because I'm so relaxed. But the reason why I brought him up is he was on my friend Luke Story's show, and Luke spent quite a bit of time talking about grounding sheets with Paul, because Paul grew up taking apart electronics and back engineering them. Just really smart guy. And I liked Paul's perspective. It was really balanced. He said, I'm not against grounding sheets for, making an antenna for the electric field and dirty electricity and all of these things. He said, as long as you use the grounding rod and it's a separate connection out your window to the ground, and you pound that rod in the earth, then he is not concerned about stray voltage and stray, electric fields coming in to your body, basically funneling them into your body, which I completely agree with. And I really feel the difference when I'm not grounding. And I'm not too crazy with my EMF belief system. I take magnesium every day, vitamin E, vitamin C, zinc. Those are the big ones. And those protect the body from the inside out from EMFs. I use Starlink here in the mountains, and I have that on a timer. And sometimes I'll shift that timer, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, if I'm pushing my bedtime back. But the Wi-Fi goes to sleep for most of the time that I'm asleep, and I'm not too worried about the electric fields coming out of my walls. Maybe that's because I'm living rurally, maybe because I'm taking vitamin C, E, magnesium, zinc, all the internal EMF protection things. But I love it. I sleep so much deeper, especially combined with 200 milligrams of melatonin every night. So that's a supplement that we sell. It's 50 milligrams per capsule. I take 4 of those right before I go to bed, and it's really improved my not only sleep, but quality of life. Lately, I've been stacking with that lithium orotate, and we sell that. I think it can't be shipped to a few countries. It's actually a weirdly controversial supplement, but based on my Oligo scan, I've actually had low lithium, and genetically, I have a higher requirement for lithium. So I put 2 and 2 together, and I've been increasing my intake of lithium about 20 milligrams in the morning and 20 milligrams at night, and sometimes even more than that. And for some reason, I've been craving fish. I've been eating Seatopia, which I have a show about them you might want to check out. I'm not an affiliate, so this is not a sales pitch at all. I just love their stuff. I wish I was an affiliate because I really feel the difference with it. It's plastic-free, parasite-free, and heavy metal-free seafood. And for whatever reason, my body's been asking for fish quite often. So I'm eating it at least 5 times a week, sometimes more. And with that, I've been taking more vitamin E to match that polyunsaturated fatty acid intake. So whether you're eating more fish or taking more cod liver oil or whatever it is, really have to be aware of your vitamin E intake. So that's a product we sell called PUFA Protect. It's mixed tocopherol, vitamin E. So it's a blend of all 4 tocopherols, but mainly alpha with some gamma and then less delta and beta tocopherol. And that protects your cells and your mitochondria from excessive polyunsaturated fatty acids and also protects against lipofuscin accumulation, which is part of my CLF protocol, which is a hallmark of aging. So that is all for today. I'll see you guys next Friday. Stay supercharged.